Kenya so far. 103,838 have recovered. Remember, this is, of course, recovering from hospital and also at home. And then, of course, sadly, we have so far lost 2,519 people to COVID-19 in Kenya. We continue to remind you to follow the COVID-19 protocols, of course, of washing your hands or sanitizing as regularly as you can, wearing your mask at all time, and maintaining the 1.5 meters social distance. But just before we get into that discussion about gaming, we want to bring you perhaps the biggest story in the world right now, that is in regards to the murder of George Floyd in the United States. And former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was last evening convicted for the murder of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who died in the hands of the police in May last year. After a 3-week trial and 10 hours of deliberation during the past 2 days, the 12-person jury concluded that Chauvin, who was filmed kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes before he died, was guilty of all the 3 charges in a historic moment for racial justice movement in a nation where law enforcement officers are rarely found guilty for killing civilians. Chauvin faces up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, up to 25 years for third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for second-degree manslaughter.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3.
Right, gaming, that's what we are talking about this morning in studio. We are looking at Kenya's video gaming industry, which has, of course, recorded an astronomical growth in recent weeks. We'll be trying to find out, of course, how much it's worth. So far, there have been different figures thrown around, 13 billion shillings, 100 billion shillings. But we have experts in studio and those who are also joining us virtually to help us delve into this industry that is no longer just a gaming for social, but it's also a source, of course, for job creation. In the studio this morning, I've got Brian Barasa, is the head of business development at Pro Series Gaming, and also the co-founder of Nikon, that is the Nairobi Comic Convention. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Also joining me in studio this morning is Jay Shapiro, is the founder and CEO of Usiku Games. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Good morning.
Good to see you. All right. And joining us virtually this morning is Sylvia Gadoni. She's Kenya's first, I believe, professional female gamer, joining us live from Nyeri. Welcome to the show, Sylvia.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and also joining us virtually this morning is Bavon Ojwang, is the CEO of the Esports Kenya Federation. Lady and gentlemen, welcome to this show. And Brian, I'd like to start with you. I see you have a device on your table. What's that?
So basically, this is a PlayStation 4 controller.
Okay.
PlayStation basically is one of the platforms that you can use to play video games. It's a console. So we have 3 different platforms. We have console, we have PC, and we have mobile.
Okay.
So it's just basically one of the ways that you use to control the PlayStation.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the time that I know that is used for playing some mock football game called FIFA. Can you use it for other games?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
There's a number of games. So there's sports games, there's of course fighting games, there's adventure games. There's so many games that you can play on a PlayStation, just depending on what your preference is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But FIFA is what I am best at. Do you want to challenge me for something?
I really suck at FIFA, but yes, sure. Let's see.
Wow, you're supposed to be the expert in gaming, and I'm just about to beat you.
Different players have different preferences. Personally, I'm a fighting game, FGC is what we call it. I play a lot of fighting games, I play a lot of racing games. But I have doubled my hand at FIFA, so I'm up to the challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite team?
Favorite team, Manchester United.
Manchester United. Can we try and pick that?
Sure.
Okay. Do you know what's my favorite team?
What's your favorite team?
Arsenal.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting match.
Okay. So we're not going to waste time with really picking the lineups.
Okay.
Okay. So what's the basics? What basics do I need to know before I play FIFA?
Basically, you have first of all to know how to use the controller, because different buttons have different inputs. For example, if you're playing FIFA, you have X for passing, box for crossing, triangle for the through pass, and then O to shoot.
Okay.
So basically, that's first what you have to know. Of course, there's many more settings that go along with FIFA, but it's something that you get with time.
I was about to ask you, because that's pretty much of too many commands at the same time for someone who's a newbie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Just picking the. Okay. So do you think you're going to win?
I believe so.
Can we bet on who's going to score the first goal?
Sure. Who do you think will score the first goal?
I think I will. Arsenal always do.
All right.
It would be a disappointment.
Let's put that to the test.
Please. I hope you don't humiliate me. All my relatives are watching. The entire country is watching.
Everything is riding on this.
Oh my God. What if I score? Oh God. This is okay. You don't seem pretty much scared.
Not quite. I've been practicing a bit.
It would be so sad if I conceded first. I'm the host. The team at home shouldn't concede first. You know, the only consolation I have is if it's 80 minutes and I've not yet conceded, then I'm just doing pretty. I'm doing just fine. But again, you said you suck at FIFA. Oh God.
That was a great chance.
All right. Definitely, this could go on for a while.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm not conceding as fast as I thought I would. Yes, but for anyone who's watching, of course, this is why we asked you to be part of this conversation this morning. What Brian and I are playing is, you said it's FIFA, right?
FIFA.
And definitely I'm going to beat him in this game. But we want you to be part of this conversation. We ask you again, what's your favorite game? What's your favorite video or mobile game? You can tweet us at NTV Kenya and at Victor Kiprop _ use the hashtag #NewNormal. This conversation is also ongoing on Facebook and Instagram, where you can choose to be part of it. But just before we pick up from there, let me just go to Jay, because he has yet another game, or a couple of games if I'm not wrong. But we need to, of course, get to see what he has. Jay, what do you have?
So I've brought a collection of games. At Secret Games, we make casual games, which are a little different from the FIFA and the competitive esports games. But then also we have educational games. We have a platform called Tizzy. It's www.tizzy.games, which are meant for primary school age children, standards 1 through 6. And they're all educational games that teach math, science, English, Swahili.
Oh, really?
Et cetera. Yeah.
And that's quite interesting, because all we knew gaming was for some bit of social and entertainment aspect of it. You're introducing a new aspect of learning.
Yeah, so we're believers in what's called gaming for good, or some people call them serious games, which is using the power of gamification to take other elements of either business life or education or society and make them more engaging and have people participate more by making it fun and bringing in the emotional elements of challenge, joy, frustration, curiosity, those sorts of things.
Okay, can we try to see some of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll start off with, I'll do Masai Mkali.
What's that?
So this is a game that was created by Calvin Lachungu here in Nairobi.
Okay.
And new game. And this is what's called a platformer game. If anybody's familiar with Super Mario, it's similar to that. And you're controlling a Maasai warrior, and you go through the game. You have to collect cattle, which we do through the bells. Let me turn on my sound here. I died already.
Okay.
There you go. And
so what happens? I can only see a Maasai warrior.
That's right. as you go on, you get Libon and Ravens, and then there's Red Bull, who's the boss that you have to get. I died again. So
Okay.
that's an example of one game developed here in Nairobi at the Nairobi Game Development Center.
Okay, and we'll be talking about, of course, the importance of Kenyan developers developing their own, of course, games. But you mentioned something about children.
Yes.
You said something about memory improvement and retention of information.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let me give you a little example. Victor, are you married?
I'm about.
You're about to be married.
Someone is watching. They're probably testing what I'm about to respond.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you remember what you had for lunch last Wednesday? It was 1 week ago. Probably not.
No.
Do you remember your first date with your girlfriend?
She's going to kill me for this.
Say yes.
Okay, yes.
That's definitely the right answer.
Okay.
You definitely want to say yes. So, I mean, that's an example where our brains are designed to attach memories to emotions.
Okay.
And when you have an emotional state, it reinforces the brain. The emotions are essentially like the cars on the SDG that carry the memories with them. And,
Okay.
and so what we try and do is we take the learning from school and the reinforcement of what they learn in class and associate it with the emotions.
Okay.
Again, joy, challenge, frustration, curiosity, sense of winning,
Okay.
those sorts of things. And by doing that, it really reinforces the learning. And most importantly, you're having fun.
Okay.
And so the students don't even realize that they're learning while they're doing it.
So there's a nexus between learning and, playing and entertainment.
Absolutely. And I'll say KICD and MOE have really woken up to that and are starting to bring gamification into the Kenyan schools because it's such an effective, powerful way
Okay.
to reinforce the learning.
Okay. Let me just delve into the conversation right now, because Brian, I was looking at this statistic about how the gaming industry is richer than even the film and music industry combined. That's a huge statistic, you wouldn't say?
Yeah, it is. It actually is big, because you look at how trends are going and how guys are consuming technology at the moment. Almost everyone is a gamer. Whether be it a casual gamer or competitively in esports, everyone is a gamer and everyone is getting into that. There's a nice test that we normally do when we're engaging anyone at any of our events. You ask someone, are you a gamer? And they'll tell you, no, I'm not a gamer. I don't know how to play games. Okay. But ask them, do you play Candy Crush when you're commuting to work or back home? They're like, okay. Yeah, definitely, I do a bit of Candy Crush. So you realize that almost everyone is a gamer, and that's how they consume content. The thing about gaming is you're in control of your entertainment. Mm-hmm. As compared to movies and music, it's already content that's been created for you to enjoy. Okay. But with gaming, you're able to participate in your own entertainment. You're able to set your high scores. You're able to customize whatever you're playing. So that's what's helped the growth of the gaming industry to be able to get to a point where it's bigger than music and movies combined globally. Yeah.
All right. So, but if you look at how this came about, in my little understanding, we were just trying to create games, something that can keep the child busy as the mother cooks, and now it's a whole. I think Jay wants to dispute.
Yeah.
No, I think it's much broader than that. I think play has been a part of human evolution since the beginning. Mm-hmm. In every culture, everywhere around the world, there's this element of play, whether it's children in a playground or adults playing poker or whatever it may be. We design games.
And exactly that's my point, because it was play, but now it's a whole industry by itself. Beating music and film, creating jobs, driving the economy. We didn't see this coming, did we?
No, absolutely. And I think there's a need to differentiate between gamers with a capital G, which are people who do it competitively or professionally, many hours a day sitting on the couch and play hours of a game, versus who we go after, which is the casual gamers, which are people who are sitting in traffic in a matatu and want to play Candy Crush, for 15 minutes, or between classes, or the Ascari who's idle. We don't go after gamers at Asiko Games. We go after the hundreds of millions of people in Africa who have a smartphone, who have a game and have their favorite game. Everybody does, as you said.
But we all fall under the umbrella of gaming, isn't it?
Everybody plays games. I think that's different from being a gamer.
Mm-hmm. All right. And speaking about then going into professional, what we'd call, I guess, electronic sports. This morning we have Kenya's first professional female gamer, Sylvia Gadoni. She's famous for, of course, her own brand, or the name that she uses, the stage name. I think that is Queen Arrow. Good morning, Sylvia. You're just 23 years old and you're already representing the country with such huge capacity. Just talk to us how you ended up here.
So just to give a brief background about myself, Sylvia Gadoni, I go by Queen Arrow.
Yeah.
A professional Tekken 7 player currently signed to UIU, which is it's a professional esports team in the US. I've been gaming professionally for about 3 years right now.
Okay, so even before we get into it, I may want to know, what is Tekken?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
What is Tekken, the game that you're good at?
Oh, okay, sorry, I think the sound is cutting off. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, what I was asking is, for anyone who doesn't know, what is this game called Tekken and what does it involve?
Oh, Tekken, it's a fighting game created by Bandai Namco. It's a 3D fighting game. So I think we have around 45 plus characters in the roster. So you get to choose one of the characters, and you really have to master their moves. You need to master their combos. You need to master punishment, among other details that are necessary for you to play at a high level, at a professional level. That is to say.
That's like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, more Mortal Kombat, but not in 3D.
Okay.
But less, and also less violent and gory.
And you're the best in that in Kenya?
Sorry?
And you're the best in Kenya when it comes to that game, of course?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, quick one. I want to... I know by background, of course, you are a trained lawyer. I'm not sure if you're done with your studies or not. But just talk to us about, of course, the challenge that we have in the society and in our households and in our families, trying to tell your parents, you know what, I want to follow a career in gaming.
Yeah, I know currently there are a lot of misconceptions about gaming. That is to say, gaming is gambling. Gaming is just for people who don't know what to do with their time. But I'm here to dispel the notions alongside people like Brian and along people like Jay. I know why that misconception exists is because part of it has to do with the legal language that's in the law that states that gaming is basically gambling. And this is also part of my thesis. I've discovered that the legal language in Kenya hasn't really evolved since the 1960s.
Okay.
And I think we're going to help dispel the notion of what gaming is, we'll need to also have to change the law, basically, to also upgrade what it defines as gaming.
Okay. And certainly, of course, then it brings me to the issue, of course, of, I mean, I think Jay and Brian would agree with me here that from the onset, the way gaming was built, for some time it appeared that it was being built for the male gender, and every time you appear as a girl, you go to this PlayStation joints and you want to play a game, of course, people start to look at you in a funny way.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, yes, my question was, from the onset, it appears that gaming was sort of designed for, the male gender. And every time you maybe go for places where you can play these games, you find that maybe you're the only girl in the room and people are looking at you like you're in the wrong place.
The gaming industry was built for and by men. I don't really think they really had other genders in as they were building in this industry. And also how the society has kind of conditioned us women is that yes, you can play games, but there'll come a time where you're going to have to stop playing games because you have to now do something that is considered more traditionally feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm also, as I said, that's why I'm also here. Part of that is to also dispel the notion of gaming is for men. I want to help at least make it a more inclusive and a more safe space for women who want to become professional esports athletes to come and join without fear of being ridiculed.
All right. Thank you. Let me just bring in Bhavan here. He's the CEO of the Esports Kenya Federation. Bhavan, we have all we've gotten, of course, aspects and contributions from Brian and Jay and Sylvia, of course, of how this issue of gaming is big in this country. But from where you said, how big is it? How big is gaming in this country?
Yeah, the gaming industry actually in Kenya is really growing, as you mentioned earlier, and there are a couple of projections out there. Some people would say it's valued at about 8 billion a year. But other projections showing it's valued about 15 billion. Of course, from the federation side of it, we understand that actually there are those kind of figures running within the Kenyan economy. Only that we're still in the process of trying to put in place the right structures that will ensure that if you're giving out these figures, they're figures that are reliable, and you can be able to authenticate those. But we've seen the interest not just from the gaming side of it and enjoying it as a sport, but interest from people who would like to invest and approach it from the business side of it. And from the federation, some of the efforts that we've been engaged in the last couple of 4 or 5 years or so has been to try and package gaming and present it particularly to the would-be sponsors, package and sell, also package and present it to the corporates, and begin to show them that it's just a line of business that someone can get in, put in a little bit of money and be able to make a, and that interest has really grown.
Okay. And of course, from a regulation point of view, the thing that we normally see is how these things are treated. The same way art has always been discriminated in this country. What you see, the way this gaming stations being treated is, sometimes the authorities raid them. They are seen as, illegal dens where the children, are addicted to maybe things they should not be addicted to, or are being misled, are becoming too much into internet and all that. So are we likely to see a mainstreaming of course, of the gaming industry going forward?
Yeah, of course. And not just going forward, because we've done a lot of work so far in line with the, trying to, just get the government and other organs of the government to understand and embrace gaming and actually give it a place in the society. I'll tell you, for instance, from the federation side of it, there was maybe some years back, we heard these stories every now and then. You've seen the news stories of police going to raid these gaming arcades and arresting these kids and harassing them. And of course, that has not been happening of late because we made an intervention in that, and so there's a clear understanding of how these dens should be treated. And with some of the policies that we're going to put in place, that will make sure that going in future, the environment will be a whole lot more conducive for anybody participating in it. One of our panelists, Jay Shapiro, like the kind of games that is creating right now. A couple of years back, the Ministry of Education, was not really understanding and actually even willing to give a chance to, kind of works that the Shapiro is doing. We took an initiative and got into discussions with KICD. And right now, actually, KICD has really changed their approach in how they evaluate some of these games and be able to embrace them.
So are we likely to see them? Okay. Are we
Sorry?
likely to see them perhaps incorporated in the, let's say, our curriculum?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have that. In fact, we're taking it a notch higher. We're in the process of designing, and probably we should be launching in a couple of months a school esports league So so we can have a league running just like any other league, the soccer league or those. But now we can have a league for schools. That is just to be able to help out, in assimilation of gaming into the schooling system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just go back to Sylvia on that point about creating a league for esports. Sylvia, you're one of those recognized gamers in the country. How does it feel? How does it work to be when you become a professional gamer? Does it work the same way we see footballers train in actual and real sports and athletes?
Yeah, professional gaming, at the end of the day, it's like the same way a footballer would have to put in time to perfect their craft. I mean, among other people, professional players in the country, we put in hours in understanding the game, understanding our characters, understanding the scenarios which you can be put in. So at the end of the day, it's just go and trying to consistently be among the best, because we are not also just ranking us, we're not ranking ourselves like just within the country. We're also competing against other countries within the African region. Mm-hmm. And we even, we look up to people who are well-recognized professionals, like in Pakistan, like in South Korea, in Japan, just to mention a few countries.
So how does your day look like then? Do you wake up and game and go for a tea break and come back and train?
My day looks like this. Okay, right now I'm currently busy with my thesis, so I haven't had as much time as I'd like to train. But when I do have the time, I'm here in front of my console. I'm looking through replays of matches that I had to see what blew me up and how I can do better. And on top of that, I'm also looking through videos on YouTube from people who've posted their gameplay. I watch some of these professional players from Korea and Japan and Pakistan. And I also consult with some of my teammates within my team to understand how I can do better.
Okay. And maybe for anyone then who's wondering still a bit uneasy on whether they should join or not, or go professional or not, does professional gaming actually pay?
Yes, it does. It's the winnings that you get from tournaments, and there's also, because I'm also an influencer of sorts, I also get sometimes gigs, mm-hmm. and I also do consultation with people who'd like to understand more about the space, and also do consultations with corporates.
Okay. All right. Jay, let me just come back to you and Brian about the issue of acceptance in the society, because we live in a society that one would describe as closed. And before some of these things, I could tell you, even before I became a journalist, my parents were like, really? Can you try something serious, like, being a doctor, and a teacher? And now we have Gemma, we have Sylvia, she's 23 years old, she's making money, she hasn't even finished school. But when she goes to her parents in the evening and she's like, I actually want to be a professional gamer, the reception is not what we expect.
I'm CEO of a Pan-Africa gaming company. My mother's still disappointed that I'm not a doctor. so I understand. I'm CEO. I'm really glad you drew the parallel before to football.
Yeah.
And, you were playing Arsenal versus Man U. Mm-hmm. Sylvia is somebody who's...
And we were going to win.
Really talented. Yeah. Really talented, dedicated, and becoming quite famous.
Yeah.
Honestly. But she's the equivalent of the players on the Arsenal team. Mm-hmm. And when you consider the football industry, FIFA as a whole, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. The players are just the visible pointy end of the stick, right? There's building the stadiums, there's the sponsorships, there's the football the ball manufacturers, the uniform manufacturers. There's so many industries involved in making that match happen.
Okay.
And it's exactly the same thing in gaming. When we talk about having a career in gaming in Kenya, I absolutely encourage people to do. And yes, it's a multi-billion shilling industry, but the professional gamers is a tiny piece of it.
Okay.
And the people who are in the cybers actually playing, well, we welcome them. I mean, they're the players. They're the reason we're here. Yeah. But actually, there's soundtrack music composers, there's animators, there's illustrators, there's coders, mm-hmm. there's IP lawyers, we have finance people, marketers. It's a huge industry. It's $160 billion US industry for just mobile gaming.
Because when we
globally.
look at it, we just look at it from the small
Exactly.
scope of the gamers themselves.
And that misses the whole point.
Okay.
This is a big industry that, in particular in Kenya, you're asking how big it is before, whether it's 8 billion, 13 billion shillings. Nobody really knows the exact number because there's no industry body yet. But what we know is that it's a tiny percentage of what it will be. This is a massively growing industry in Kenya.
And maybe for you, Brian, because today is the 21st of April is the World, I believe, Innovation and Creativity Day. You would agree that, or accept that, this could qualify as part of innovation, yes, but we still live in a society where we are a bit reluctant to some of those things.
I think it goes down to, like Sylvia said, misconception or negative perception towards gaming. Traditionally, it's been looked at, you work hard and then when you're doing your leisure, that's when you get to game. It's never been taken seriously.
In fact, every time you mention esports and gaming, it sounds like a game for children.
Exactly. So there's that misconception that needs to be changed. And partly what we do as Pro Series Gaming, whenever we're engaging the different gamers, sometimes we also engage parents, especially for parents of younger gamers, because we have guys in some of our engagements as young as 8 years old, 12 years old, who come to play at their level. So we also engage in a bit of education towards the parents. We're telling them this is an industry that's growing. These are the jobs of the future. This is what technology, adaptation of technology looks like, to the point that 20, 30 years ago, telling your parents that you wanted to be a DJ didn't make sense. Right now, it's largely accepted. Musicians, largely accepted. So that's the trajectory that we are trying to take with gaming. And just like Jay said, it's a bigger industry than just looking at the professional gamer. Just looking at the Kenyan example, for it, we have, of course, we have the gamer. We have the guys who are selling the equipment, the PlayStations and the games themselves. You're looking at production. That's a whole other aspect, because for it to be called esports, there has to be the spectator element of it. So there's a production team that goes behind, captures the content, edits, and then we have the content aggregators where the content will be seen. So it's a whole large industry that anyone can plug in. We have guys like shoutcasters. Basically, if you grew up the time that I grew up, we remember Bernard Otieno, who used to break down the matches for us. That's the same thing with esports. You have shoutcasters who are breaking it down play by play of what's going on. So is
that like commentators?
That's the commentators,
oh,
basically.
Man, you like
so that's
using...
a fancy esports term for commentators.
Okay.
So there's a lot that goes into the whole industry, and I think it comes down to just the right kind of education, especially to the parents or the guardians of these would-be gamers at a very early level. And then also looking at it from a professional, international best practice standard. You have, when you're looking at an esports athlete, whatever they have to go to. So internationally, you have a team house where they're housed. So they go through a whole schedule of, they'll wake up, they'll have their breakfast, they'll do the physical workouts in the gym. They'll come out, do a bit of training just like Sylvia does, evaluating of gameplay, seeing where they went wrong, what they can improve on, a bit of their gaming, and then of course at the end of it they have a bit of leisure to just go and do their own thing now.
Okay.
And all that's where we're trying to get to, that international standard. We're trying to also bring that into Kenya. So where we see, if you tell a parent, if your child participates in esports, which is not just a game, this is a career, there's a potential of them first securing their future. If they're in school, they can get their school fees paid, or can get whatever it is. They are getting into an industry that has so many opportunities. Okay. So that's what we're trying to advocate.
I think Jay wants to add something.
Yeah, I want, as long as we're smashing misconceptions, I want to do one more.
Okay.
Which was the sense that the games are designed for men and it's a male-dominated industry, and historically parts of it absolutely have been.
Yeah.
But to come back to your Arsenal example, right? Imagine Arsenal at the moment; it's an all-male squad.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine if they said, yes, women can play on the field, but they must wear bikini tops. Right?
All right.
People would be outraged.
Okay.
It would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet somehow in gaming that's
and I've seen
allowed,
that actually.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in the AAA games, the ones that Sylvia plays, for example, Tekken and Halo and all those things, women are objectified, right? And it definitely is male dominated. But when you look at the gaming industry globally, and you look at casual games, which is actually the majority of the revenue in the gaming industry, it's 65% women players. And the median age is actually 37, not teenage boys.
Okay.
So when you look at the industry globally, where the money is actually coming from and who's actually playing games, it's actually majority women. They're just playing different games. They're playing Candy Crush and Sudoku and Angry Bird and games like that, as opposed to these violent shooting games with big guns and women in bikinis.
And I'm going to come back, of course, to the importance of smartphones and mobile games, considering how costly some of this can be. But let me bring in Bavon on the issue of addiction sometimes, and the bad side of gaming. Sometimes we hear issues of, oh, my son has been addicted to this. They're starting to add weight because they're sitting down in the house the whole day, and there are issues of, obesity and how it affects interaction among children. Some children start to become more of introverts. Let me just ask Bavon about this. Bavon, is there any valid argument to this?
Everybody would like to make their arguments on, what will be the pros and cons of gaming, and of course, what you mentioned, those are issues that we come across every now and then when you're talking to parents. That look, gaming is beginning to change the way the kids socialize, the way they do their stuff. But what esport, just like any other game, people always get those tendencies of wanting to get attached too much and consume it out of a lot that it might seem to be out of control. But all it requires is discipline, and that's what the federation is trying to introduce into the gaming. Be able to show parents that you can allocate time for gaming for your kids, because the moment that they know that within certain times of the day they'll be allowed to be able to get a chance and consume or be able to play by themselves, then they can be able to schedule themselves. So that the biggest challenge actually in esport has been a disconnect between the generation, which is slightly older generation, and the younger generation, most of it made of the millennials going downwards. And because basically this is their game. So the older generation doesn't seem to understand, what is this all excitement about e-gaming and e-sporting. And that's where now, parents now will start seeing this as, becoming a nuisance. But with all the measures and even just having discussions like what we're having right now, it begins to, make the older generation to understand and also be able to just take it up and give their kids a chance to be able to consume a sport that more or less is assumed to be a creation, as a creation of the millennials. So all those misconceptions, we are getting ways that we can be able to address them, so that gaming now becomes a part and parcel of the way families socialize in-house and out of their homes at the same time.
Okay, all right. Jay, let me come back to you and Brian about the issue, because I saw somewhere that Strathmore University is actually starting to consider putting some of these things in the curriculum, and the issue that you mentioned, that we could start moving towards a situation where gaming is not just for teenage high school boys, but also even we can see even girls and ladies playing them, and we see even
girls.
Yeah. So talk to us about the direction that we need to take from here.
So I think first of all, you're right that people sitting on their sofas and playing games is an issue, and obesity, absolutely, especially in some countries.
Yeah.
But at the same time, during COVID now, I read that Netflix subscriptions are up, I think, 255% or something like that, right? We all need some outlet for recreation. At the same time, we're doing a project at the moment with GIZ, the German Development Agency, to create a game in Kenya that uses the the step tracker in your phone and gamifies it and encourages people to get out and be more physically active and actually play football on their local pitch and then compete against each other on their phone. But instead of playing with your joystick on FIFA, you're actually going and playing real football.
And that is the gaming for good impact.
That's part of the gaming for good, absolutely, and what's called sports for development.
So we can still find a balance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, games and play take all sorts of forms. You know, in terms of the social interaction, my family and I just played a game a couple nights ago called Keep Talking and Nobody Will Explode. And it's this sort of escape the room type environment where you have a bomb that you have to defuse. And as a family, you have to all give directions to the person on how to do it. And we're really having fun and laughing and interacting, playing a mobile game, right? Okay. So the concept that it means that you sit on your sofa and you play by yourself one game, that's just false. Okay. There's all kinds of ways of doing games.
Sylvia, at any point, have you ever felt that you're too addicted to Tekken?
No, I have not. As Jay said, it's all an issue of striking balance at the end of the day.
Okay.
So personally, I personally work out every day to make sure that I don't get like back pains or any other body problems from sitting too long. And at the end of the day, it's also an issue of, as Bhavin said, it's an issue of prioritizing. It's an issue of discipline.
Okay.
So if we can help the society understand that that those those concerns are kind of unvalidated, then I think the industry would also go off a long way.
All right. Okay. All right. Of course, we'll be sampling part of the feedback that we've been asking you if you are a gamer and what's your favorite game, be it video or mobile, and we'll be looking at that in a short while. But I think we have some of them actually. Can we take a look at that? Yes, we have. That should be looks. It says Street Poker. Okay, I don't know what that kind of a game that is. This is DJ Cisse. He says FIFA. We have Benjani Tino Mbua. He says Solitaire and PES, of course. And then we have Wainaina Dan. He says Call of Duty, FIFA, and Assassin's Creed. I think that combines both video and some of the games that we have on the mobile. Lewi, he says PES 2021. Thank you. We have Issa, he says FIFA all the way. All right. And then Blue Queen, she says FIFA. All right. Brian, it seems like everyone is playing FIFA around here.
Is one of the most popular games, not only in Kenya, but in Africa, because traditionally, you see, one of the pastimes that we've always had is watching football. The Premier League is big in Kenya, it's big in Africa, because that's what we've been watching. So it only translates that the most popular game will be FIFA.
But there are thousands of games.
Thousands of games that you could play. And then one thing we've also realized is most of these gamers, they're not only FIFA players, but they also dabble in other games. We saw someone who commented about 3 games that they play.
Oh, Assassin's Creed.
It's the same for most of the gamers. So you'll find a lot of people are playing FIFA, but not everyone is playing FIFA, you get.
Okay.
So like personally for myself, I mentioned racing games, fighting games, that's what I play. If you were to judge one of the games, for example, Injustice, which is my favorite game, if you look at how many people play Injustice, maybe the number won't be as big as FIFA, but you'll find a lot of guys who play FIFA also play Injustice, and they probably play some sort of mobile game. So it just comes down to what most people were exposed to, and also by virtue that we didn't have a lot of the equipment growing up, we had to get that 5 shilling, 10 shilling, go to a gaming parlor, pay and play the games. Most of the games that were available at the time were either FIFA or mostly computer games that you played at the cyber. So that's part of the reason why FIFA is such a big title.
Do you think a diversification of this, or is it an aspect of making people aware that there are thousands of other games that they can take aside from FIFA if I don't like football?
I think it comes down to the availability. If the equipment and the games are available, then you'll find more people experimenting with other games. And I think that's where one of the challenges, or rather one of the things that esports tries to do. When we host tournaments, we have a number of games, and we're telling people there's this different games that are being played. I'll give you an example of something we're currently doing. We are in in partnership with Red Bull, there's a Valorant tournament that's going on. So you'll find not many people knew about Valorant, but the fact that there was some education that was given in terms of activation, people got onto the game. They downloaded the game, they tested it, and then they were able to sign up for the tournaments. So the more education that happens about these games, the better it will be for them to take them up.
Okay.
And it also comes from a global perspective in terms of the rating of the games. You find some games are rated AAA, some are AA, some are A. So depending on the popularity of some of these games, whatever people are watching, that's what they're more likely to play also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have to go for a quick break, but when we come back from this break, we talk about the challenges that are facing the gaming industry in Kenya, how they can, of course, be resolved, and how to take forward this gaming industry in Kenya. Our panelists, including Jay Shapiro and Brian Barasa, will be telling us what they do individually in terms of making sure that even the money that we make from the billions, the trillions that we make from gaming industry doesn't necessarily, leave the country, but it can stay in Kenya. Don't go anywhere.
There's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex.
Protex. Good health starts here.
NTV Jioni, habari za kina, fasaha, tendeti na za kuaminika.
Timeless love.
Here things are done as I say, not as you want them to be.
I know that you want money, Peppa, so I'm giving it to you. But before I do, I have to know how my daughter is.
I don't think you understand. Listen, I'm not going to tell you anything, until you and I come to an agreement.
I have to be able to prove that you really have my daughter. Mother!
And I brought this for my princess. Timeless love.
Wow, thank you for your time. How juicy.
Juicy. Juicy.
You're watching Your World on NTV this morning. Of course, thank you for keeping us company. We are talking about gaming, and I've got a gaming console. Is it a gaming controller? Yes. Of course, as we continue this discussion, I've got Jay Shapiro, is the founder and CEO of Usiku Games with Main Studio. Brian Barasa is the head of business development at Pro Series Gaming and co-founder of the Nairobi Comic Convention. He'll be telling us what that means. Also joining us virtually is Sylvia Gadoni. She's Kenya's first female professional gamer, and also Bavon Ojwang. He is the CEO of the Esports Kenya Federation. Jill, I'd like to come back to you on the bit about the games that you said were interactive and involved learning. What do you have for us?
Sure. So we have a platform called Tizzy. It's www.tizzy.games, which are a collection of about 30 games, all aimed for grades 1 through 6, tied to the CBC, and directly related to what the students are learning in the classroom. So for each student who plays the game, depending on how old they are, what grade they're in, and what week of the year it is, we give them a set of games that are relevant to what they've learned in the classroom, reinforcing the learning that they've done.
Oh, really?
So I've got one example here called Mara Memory Match. This is, again, for the earlier grades in the primary school. And I'll just start a game. Maybe we can play this one together, Victor.
Okay.
So I'll do an easy one. We'll do a 3x4 matrix. Okay.
What do we have to do?
So what you have to do is guess between the tiles which ones match, and you're trying to clear the board. So let's do top row, middle row, bottom row. Pick a card.
All right. Can you try the one on the bottom right?
Bottom right.
Yeah.
We got a wrench.
A wrench. Okay. Second row. Second.
Nope, that's us. Okay, let's try again.
All right. Okay. First row, the third one.
Third row, first row, third. Street.
Oh, really? I'm really bad. How do I know? Is it guesswork?
It's guesswork initially, but then you have to remember. Now you have to remember where us is and where wrench is. And
I've already forgotten the first one. Can we try? Brian, you should try.
Shout him out.
Second row, the fourth one.
Fourth one. Riddle. Okay.
Really? Yeah, I'm starting to.
It gets easier. Don't worry, it gets easier.
I don't trust you now.
Let's do top right, cracker, and bottom left, hens. Okay.
Wow.
How about top left, cracker? Where was cracker? Anybody remember?
Top row.
Was it bottom right or something?
Top right.
Top right. Okay.
Yeah, everybody at home is shouting at their TVs now. It's top right. You people are dumb. Okay.
Okay.
Next one.
All right, Brian, you should go. I'm really
third
poor.
row, second.
Third row, second. Riddle.
What was the other one?
Come on, everybody at home knows.
First row, first one.
First, no, that
No,
first
sorry,
one?
third row, first one.
Third row, first one. No, hens.
Okay, second row, the third one.
Second row, third, hens.
And fourth row, bottom left.
Bottom left. Yay, you got one. All right.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's the game. And you work your way through it, and you're learning vocabulary as you go. You're reading the words. You're learning maybe a little bit of spelling.
Yeah.
And of course, it's working on your cognitive recognition and memory.
Okay.
Memory work. So that's a great example. And this game gets harder depending on what grade you're in and what week of the year it is as you go along to match from the CBC what the students are learning in class.
Okay, so there's a chance that we can, if the kids are learning about animals in school, you can find a game that goes in line with that.
We have science games, we have maths games, we have English, art, all the different subjects, the learning areas that are covered in the CBC, we then replicate and match with the games.
Wow, that's massive. How would you describe then this very good, from where I sit, ideal balance of, entertainment as well as learning?
Well, it's what people call edutainment, right?
Oh, edutainment.
Edutainment.
That's a new
it's
one.
educational but fun.
Okay.
And by making it fun, the students then want to do it. They look forward to it, as opposed to hating a spelling class.
Okay.
Right? And they remember it more.
Okay. Do parents know that this kind of games actually exist?
I hope they do. Go to www.tizzy.games and they can try it with their kids.
All right. All right, just before let's pick up from here then. Definitely it's a massive industry. I can't remember the figures you mentioned earlier currently in Kenya, how big it is. But if you look at the developed world, we're still way behind. I mean, if Sylvia is our first female, professional gamer, then we're still far from where we should be. And we can only brag when it comes to Africa, but when we look at the developed world, we realize there's still so much to do. Maybe from where you sit, Brian, what's the biggest challenge facing the gaming industry in Kenya right now?
I feel there's a number of things that are the challenge to the industry right now. I'll speak generally on gaming, but mostly on esports. We're looking at things like we mentioned before, the negative perception of gaming. That kind of hinders a lot of people from getting into it. Maybe whether it's from passed down from the parents or just within themselves, you find a lot of people will say, I'd rather do something more constructive with my time than play games. So you have that. You're looking at something like government legislation in terms of taxation, in terms of the classification of gaming as betting. When it comes to taxation, getting some of this equipment into the country.
Did you say gaming is classified as betting?
Yes, it is. So when you look at, if you're trying to do anything in Kenya that is gaming related, even bringing in shipping in the consoles and the other machines, it's looked at as betting, so that's how it's classified.
Okay.
Yeah. So
essentially you're being treated as gambling.
As gambling, exactly. Then you're looking at some things like technical issues like not having servers close to us. Most of the servers are located either in Europe, Asia, or the Americas. So when you're playing a video game here in Kenya, the amount, and you're playing against someone, say, in Germany, the amount of time it takes for the signal to come from your console to the server and then back.
Okay.
It takes a longer time than someone who's closer to the server. So that's something that we're generally struggling with. And then, of course, like I said, the expensive machinery. Some of this machinery is expensive, especially because of the high taxation. And then we also don't see a lot of, because of the negative perception, you'll find that where corporate sponsors would have come on board, like in traditional sports or whichever other engagement like music, you don't have so many corporate sponsors coming on board for gaming because of that perception. I think it's very few corporate entities that have really supported gaming in Kenya. You're looking at guys like Liquid Telecom because of the infrastructure. You're looking at Red Bull, Safaricom. Those are the guys that I'd say have really come on board to support what we are doing in gaming. In Kenya. Okay. So those are some of the challenges that I see that we face. If those things are sorted out, then I believe that we'll be at a better place as an industry in Kenya.
Let me just get your comment here.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually are, as a company, are firmly anti-gambling. That's actually why we started the company back in 2018 as an alternative
but you're being
to
classified
Sportpesa.
as gamblers.
Right, but the government, BCLB, still does absolutely qualify. But even our name, Usiku Games, is designed because for hundreds of millions of Africans across the continent, when the sun goes down, there's very little to do other than gambling, drinking, and making babies. And so we wanted to create an alternative that was affordable and fun, but created a positive social impact on the community. And so
really?
that's our real foundation. So it's ironic that we're classified as gambling.
How does that make you feel then, that you're trying to educate people, but now you're being classified, like a casino?
It doesn't bother me at all. I think this is a process. I think this is very early days for this industry, not just in Kenya, but across the continent. I absolutely believe this will be a many billion-dollar industry.
But if you look at the figures you're giving us that we are grossing from the gaming industry, don't you think by now regulation should have sort of tried to catch up, tried to recognize these issues and mainstream them?
So look, we launched 2 months before COVID hit Kenya. I'm thankful that the government has been preoccupied with more important things to do than worried about what we're classified as under the law. That's fine with me.
And it's a pity that I think we lost Bhavan. I don't know, he's still with us. But just before then we get, Bhavan, do you want to respond to some of the issues that Brian has raised?
Yeah, of course, anyway, the way you put it in the beginning, that Kenya is still far behind when it comes to gaming. It's yes and no, because there's actually a lot of activities happening behind the scenes when it comes to business of gaming. There's a lot of money being made behind the scenes, which that has not then come to the forefront, and then people be able to look at that and pick on those figures and just put the value of esports in Kenya. Personally, before I came into regulating esports, I had a project that I did with Huawei and Safaricom, the famous Chaser games, which we it was grossing some really good money. We refunded close to 1 billion shillings after just 3 months in just trying to, and so the money is being made. Only that now, as I had mentioned earlier, that we are putting the right structures in place, that now someone can begin to, take count of the inflows in terms of the money being made in the industry and actually get that. And then number two also, Brian had mentioned that there are very fewer corporates that seem to be taking interest in supporting esports.
Yeah.
I would say that for Brian and so many other people that have not been able to establish this kind of relations or even identified where sponsorships would come from, they should try and also get in touch with the federation. As I mentioned earlier, is that some of the things that we've been doing as a federation is to package and sell esports to the corporates.
Okay. And
I've managed to bring on board, even banks. Right now the National League that we should be rolling out in a couple of months will be sponsored by National Bank. We have banks like Kingdom Bank, which is actually now giving loans to gaming cafes. If you want to buy, a console or PC for gaming, you can go to Kingdom Bank and be able to get a loan from them.
Okay.
So we've done so much. Done so much.
Okay. And Bhavan, let me just challenge you on the bit about Brian and other gamers, approaching you, because quite a number of us, I should say some of them that I spoke to, were not even aware that we actually have a federation in the first place. And what they were talking about is you can only find them on Facebook. You try to find the website and it's not loading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The issue about where we can be found or whether the federation has been in existence or not is two things. We are relatively a new federation. You wouldn't expect that we'll have a presence and an impact just like let's say FKF, the Football Federation. Those guys have been around for quite a long time. And since the federation was formed, we've everybody understands the state of the government being able to support and sponsor some of this federation. Even the Football Federation a year or two back didn't have money. So next, and certain soccer matches were not happening. It's the same challenge we're facing as a federation ourselves. For us to be able to publicize ourselves and be known, it requires money. More or less right now, some of us are going into our own pockets to try and get any of these activities going. There's very little. There's almost no support, that we've received so far from the government. Of course, we get these circulars, that we need to give budgets and request for funding from the government. We do that every year, and it doesn't come through. So most of the time is that we go into our pockets and be able to do this. But with the kind of partners that we have in place now, I can give you assurance that in the next few months, you'll see a lot more of the federation now being publicized, and there'll be so many activities in place. Okay, one thing also that you need to be able to understand is after the federation was formed, we had to be strategic. We needed to we first identified the challenges that we needed to have those addressed immediately, and then plan and get some of now the questions being asked now being dealt with sometime along the way.
Okay.
And the challenges that we had in the first place is, we came into an industry that at some point actually had a lot of cartels. There's so many other things that, we wouldn't want to say on a show like this, but, we had to come in, make sure that, we try to harmonize those, get a couple of things going, now get the corporates involved. Once we get the corporates involved, get even the other ministries coming on board.
Okay.
The complaints like what Brian and Jay have just said, I've just brought up that the government not being able to put the right not having the policies in place that support gaming. And so those are the discussions we are also trying to have internally with the government.
Okay.
So once then there was when we were now able to bring all these guys on the table, and now having the kind of discussion that we're having at the moment, at that point then it will be easier for us now to come out and start publicizing ourselves and selling ourselves out there as a federation, and then being in a position that people like Brian and everybody else can come and get the support that they could get from a federation.
I know Jay really wants to respond to this, but just before I get back to Jay, let me bring in Sylvia. Sylvia, what's your biggest concern as a professional gamer in Kenya with how the industry is managed and run?
Okay, there's so many things that I'd like to say as a rebuttal to Bavon's statements.
Yeah.
But okay, my concern as a gamer is one that as long as gaming is seen as a preserve of the wealthy, it's not going to. There's no way that the industry is going to grow. For one, okay, as Bran and Jay have said that the cost of consoles are really pricey due to the punitive taxation regime that we live under. On top of that, we find that the reality is that not many Kenyans have been exposed to gaming due to poverty being a factor.
Okay.
So as long as there's this mentality that these consoles aren't accessible to me because these items are for the wealthy and they're not able to access the infrastructure that they need, it's not going to be possible to grow the industry as it needs to grow.
Okay.
And on top of that, as I said, as long as the law stays the way it is right now, in that gaming is seen as gambling in the eyes of the law, the Betting Act and the Consumer Protection Act state that basically gaming is gambling. We're not going to see any improvements in the gaming industry.
Okay. All right, Jay, you really wanted to respond just before I got Sylvia.
I think people at home listening to Sylvia and Bevan might get kind of depressed, or think that this is full of problems. But I'm actually really optimistic about this space and really encouraged by. I'll give you 3 examples of the investment in infrastructure that's happening in Kenya now. That's really changing the face of gaming. Okay. So, for example, ADMI, the Africa Digital Media Institute, is a training school here in the CBD, a few blocks away from here. They did a partnership last year with Rubica from France. It's one of the top schools in game development in the world. They've set up here, and now we're starting to get cohorts of people coming through the school who historically maybe had art talent or were rappers or musicians, or they didn't know what to do. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't have economic opportunities based on their talent. Okay. Well, now there's an opportunity for them. So that's the first one. The second one is our own, the Nairobi Game Development Center. It's a 6,000 square foot community space on the top 2 floors of Diamond Plaza in Parklands. Yeah. And it's available for any of these game developers or artists or players, even esports people, who maybe were kind of lonely sitting at home by themselves, thinking that they're the only ones in Kenya doing this. And now it's a place where they can come, they can meet each other, have those random collisions, and start to develop this as an industry and build games and build an industry. And then the third one is people like Liquid Telecom, who have been fantastic in really supporting this industry, really across Africa, investing in the data centers and the servers that are needed, and the fiber optic lines to a lot of the schools to make this a reality.
Okay. And of course, I'll be coming back to you on that bit about the Nairobi you said
Game Development Center.
Game Development Center, and the importance with regards to making sure that we develop our own games and we stop the outflow of cash. But for now, I still want to continue my challenge with Brian regarding this Man United versus Arsenal game. But just before we do that, a colleague of mine, actually, his name is Brian, was at the Pro Series Gaming at Westlands to meet, I think, one of your colleagues, and this is something small that he prepared. When you come back, you'll find out the result of how many goals I've scored past Brian.
I'm joined by Mr. Whitehead Dennis, who works here at PSG, that's Pro Series Gaming, and we'll just get straight into it. Just a quick introduction and what you do here at PSG.
I'm the team lead at Pro Series Gaming. Pro Series Gaming is very interesting. It's an esports brand, and for those who are not familiar what esport means, it's basically competitive playing of video games And yes, people do get into that sport where you play video games competitively.
How is the Kenyan industry in terms of gaming?
For that matter, let me just break it down and say we call it video gaming and not just gaming, because when you say gaming, it's put together as betting. It's basically video gaming, and video gaming is quite big here in Kenya. Especially now with the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people taking up gaming as a hobby, or video gaming as a hobby. When I was young, that's something I wanted to pursue, but the environment for me to do that was not very well cultivated. Now that I have a chance to be able to go back and say, you know what, I wanted to do that, and I'm quite sure a lot of the young guys who are coming up would like to do that, but the opportunity is not there. Why not go back and create that opportunity for them? So to answer your question, the world of gaming here in Kenya is growing very fast. We might not be able to draw parallels compared to esports because it's fairly new, it's fairly younger compared to generally video gaming. I'd say from about 2013 we started seeing good traction here on the ground, and now it's really growing tenfold.
We're fighting a global pandemic. I mean, the world is literally at war, and guys have been asked to stay home just as containment measures. This, in turn, means more guys video gaming, as you call it. How's the journey been for PSG during this pandemic?
The journey has been very interesting during this pandemic. We've seen surges in different disciplines of video gaming. So when I say disciplines, I mean you'd find there's first-person shooters, sports simulators, FCGs, which is fighting games community. So we've seen different surges in the different places, especially with the sports simulators, things like FIFA. We've seen a lot of people taking up FIFA. So we've seen good numbers there. Other places we've seen also taking good hold is the mobile gaming space. We'll find games like Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG, those games are also taking root. So we've seen some good growth in terms of the numbers. We've also seen some really interesting conversation when it comes to investment. So it's been a really interesting journey for us.
Let's talk about tournaments as far as PSG is concerned. How's that?
So tournaments as far as PSG is concerned, they've been really smooth. We've seen people coming into the online space because of the pandemic. We're not able to bring people into a physical space. And that was our forte, creating these larger-than-life experiences and bringing people into those experiences. However, with the pandemic, we have a lot of restrictions. Ministry of Health has said you can't bring people into a physical space, so we've moved our experiences online. So we have a monthly online tournaments where people can engage, and if you're looking to start figuring out if you are able to become a professional player, that's a place that you can start. You don't need to invest anything, it's just your time and effort, and basically your skills to grind. So if you think you're good, you can start with the PSG online tournaments and rank yourself within the food chain and see where you land. Moving forward from that, we also have our big tournaments that are scheduled to start hopefully next month. We have something we call FIFA Fan Fest, which is basically a FIFA league which is going to run for the next 6 months. So people moving from the pools level all the way to the Champions E-Cup. We're looking forward to having people like Flossin Mawano coming back and trying to reclaim his victory, because last year he was dethroned by Bomb Squad 254, which was fairly very interesting. So you'd find there's a lot of talent in other places which have not been tapped into in Kenya, but there are people who have some really good skills which we need to nurture and also just showcase to the rest of the world.
Finally, what's the future of gaming in Kenya from where you sit?
The future of video gaming in Kenya is quite bright. We have a lot of young generations who are coming up. They understand the technology a lot better. They take it as a hobby, but also they want to take it as a profession. So we find there's also different opportunities and different avenues for them to be able to take it as a profession, all the way from being a professional athlete to being a game developer and being a shoutcaster. So there are all these opportunities which have not been tapped into, and also just pegging it back to what the pandemic has done to us, because it's a big talking point. A lot of people have lost their jobs. You're left to fend for yourself, and you need to be very creative in terms of how you address this particular scenario. So esports, video gaming creates an avenue where people can take advantage of the creative arts, just push yourself out there and make a living out of it. So for us, we'd say the potential in the future of video gaming in Kenya is quite bright. And just to add on to that, the potential of esports has not even been tapped into.
Wow. Any final remarks?
If you're out there and you think you're a professional gamer, you think you can become a shoutcaster, do not fear, do not hesitate. It's a matter of taking a bold step and coming out and saying, I want to pursue this challenge. A lot of people don't understand it, but you have to be bold enough to go out and say, we're going to go against the grain and prove other people wrong and just fend for ourselves.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we're just about to break for halftime here at the Old Trafford Stadium, and Arsenal are leading 3-1. Of course, I told you we were going to win this. Yes, 3-1. I told you. Definitely, of course, my village mates are proud of me wherever they are, and maybe I have a future in gaming. Actually, but just before we came back to this, Brian was of course talking to some of the participants in this industry, and something they raised was about the impact that COVID-19 has had on this industry, because on one side, I mean, people were sitting home, they were able to play games. But for the people who run this PlayStation shops, because it's some sort of a contact, not really contact game as such, but sometimes it involves people coming together. So we may have not seen so much of that. Just talk to us. But for you, Jay, you said the games were launched during the COVID-19 period.
That's right. We spent almost our entire career as a company in COVID, and I really think that gaming has had a critical role to play during COVID. So, for example, the youth today largely ignore any formal messaging that comes from the Ministry of Health or the traditional roles.
Yeah.
But what they trust is games, hip-hop, and comic books. And so we partnered early on during COVID in about April with Shuja, some of the top hip-hop artists around Kenya, Octopizzo and Clinchy and guys like that.
Yeah.
And we created a hand-washing game, a comic book tips on how to keep social distancing, etc. And then we created a custom hip-hop song that was all about, don't be stupid, stay home, wash your hands, all those things. We reached 5 million youth. Oh, and we partnered with Unilever as well, I should say, Lifebuoy brand. And through that, we were able to reach 5 million youth with messaging that they actually paid attention to, because again, it was fun, it was relevant, it was involved them, and it was trusted. And I think that's really the power of gamification, particularly where we stand on a social development perspective, where you're trying to do those behavioral nudges, and you want to encourage the youth to listen. And gaming is really powerful from that perspective.
Right. Brian, I have to go for a quick break, but just before I do, you see, for them it was a win because they developed these games and they got partners to work with, and it really had a good social impact, as it says. But for you, you were behind the Nairobi Comic Convention. Talk to us about what this was about and how much of perhaps interference COVID-19 was.
So just to start off, the Nairobi Comic Convention, basically, as the name suggests, it's a Comic-Con, if you're familiar with the Comic-Cons of the world. What it does, it's a platform. It's a platform for digital creatives, both in comic books, animation, and gaming, to be able to showcase what they have. And it's mostly for Africa to the world. So that's what the platform is about. Last year, because of COVID, we were not able to have the physical convention, but we had to get innovative with what tools we had. So we had to move it to an online platform, which we called Comic-Con. That's C-O-M-E-C-O-N. So it's just a play on the e-convention. So we were still able to engage with the different guys in the pillars that we serve. So comic books, animation, gaming, communities. We're able to hold panels, sessions for those, just basically how we do a Nairobi Comic Con event, but now we took it online. So we saw, in terms of footfall, of course, we didn't get the footfall that we normally get in terms of the projections. However, we were able to cross boundaries, cross borders, and be able to engage both viewers and panelists from across the world. And in a way, it was a win for us, because those are borders that we would never have crossed if we were to have a physical event, because of the cost of getting those panelists into the country. So we were able to do that. In terms of PSG, we suffered in terms of physical events, but like Dennis said, we had to transition to online tournaments, and it was a win for us, because if you look at globally, and just like Jay said, a lot of young guys trust things that they're involved in, like gaming. So we got a lot more visibility because of the online tournaments that we had. One of the most prolific ones was the FIFA Fan Fest that was really successful last year.
Okay, but you would agree with me that going online comes at an extra cost of having some reliable internet.
True, and that's why we have partners like Liquid Telecom who help us really with that side of things. In terms of a cost, it's a more minimal cost compared to having a physical event, because you have to pay for the venue, you have to pay for flights, accommodation, and that kind of thing.
All right, we have to take a break now. When we come back, we talk about how Kenyan developers are developing Kenyan-based games and making sure that the money stays here. Don't go anywhere.